What is up? We got Metal Gets Me High, episode 40. It's just me and Razor today as your host. And we have a very special guest. We got Patrick from the band Abraded. How's it going, Patrick?
How's it going, guys?
Excuse the different backgrounds. Where me and Al are both at work, so we're getting this shit done.
Yeah.
You know, we've just been a little busy, didn't do shows, and then last week, when the day we usually do shows, which is Thursday, we went and we saw Undeath, and you know, had to see the live music first rather than do a show.
Killer, yeah, for sure. Got to stay inspired. And to anyone watching, these guys are just being modest. I told them before we got on, wear your formal attire. Let's class it up for this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. We're trying to get fancy. We got to get those big bucks sponsorships or something like that.
That's where I'm at too. So if there's any big buck corporate or big butt corporations watching, send some money our way. But we love metal. We love making content. Let's keep it going. Send us some money.
Fuck yeah.
Yes, please. I want to say, checked out your guys' album, Unadulterated Perversity. Honestly, like, I didn't even know you guys had a new album coming out. I just went on Bandcamp and I saw the album art and I was like, Abraded, what the hell? How did I not know that?
Give me 1 sec, I'll be right back.
I checked it out and maybe it's just me, but it seems like such a big departure compared to your first two releases, but in such a good way. It's in my opinion my favorite Abraded release so far, and I think going a different route could scare people off. I think you guys killed it.
Thank you so much. I'm really flattered to hear that. I also agree that it was a pretty decent departure. We dropped a lot of the more blast oriented stuff. I really wanted to simplify. I was jamming with new people to write this.
Okay.
And yeah, like our guitarist, Evan, comes from a more hardcore punk background. And that's actually my real foundation for drumming.
Okay.
I've been a guitar player for longer than I've been a drummer. And my guitar playing is definitely very much rooted in, I'd say my biggest influences are like Bill Steer, like 89 Carcass, Bill Steer, also 88 Napalm Death, like that verge between death metal and grindcore.
Yeah.
My influence as a guitar player, but as a drummer starting off simply, what I started playing was stuff like Poison Idea or like very simple punk stuff. So my intention with this album was definitely to play more to our strengths and our background. And it just felt more organic and more natural for us to go the direction we did with this one, which was to, again, we dropped a bit of the grindcore stuff. I was a bit burnt out. I've done so many grindcore things. Dropped a bit of the grindcore, although there's elements of it still on there. But what I really loved about the first Abraded EP and the Abraded album was the fantastic lead work. The guitar solos is what set it apart from all my other projects. And I really wanted to continue to emphasize the lead work, the guitar solos, and just play to our strengths doing punk stuff. So I think he did a good job following up the original band members. Again, to me, what sets Abraded apart from all my other projects was the fantastic guitar work.
Yeah, that was the big thing that like caught my attention was the guitar, because you saying Carcass, I heard a lot of that in it, and then like it was almost like it was just very catchy. Like I would get a lot of the riffs stuck in my head, and I'm like, like it worked, but compared to the other stuff where like if you look on the Abraded EP or the Abraded album, and then the Descendants of the Swamp EP, on your Bandcamp it says caveman shit and knuckle dragging, and that like in my opinion couldn't be further away from what the new release is, and I absolutely loved it. I and even the artwork, like I think the artwork kind of looks different like compared to your first two releases. Well done. I love it.
Yeah, you know what?
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I had a question about the artwork because I saw it and I was like, God damn, this is insane. Now, did you have somebody like illustrate that, or was that like a piece that you saw and you're like, that's it, that's what I'm going for.
Yeah, so that's actually just an old piece. That's
Okay,
totally
Okay.
from 1571 or whatever. I think it's
that's dope.
1571. The artist is named Titian. And I was reading a book in which he actually described the meaning of um, the mythological story that piece is depicting,
Hmm.
and it really resonated with me. So I looked it up, and I loved that, and so it was win-win. If you'd like, I could explain what the piece means.
Yeah,
Yeah,
please.
yeah, for sure.
Sure. So
It's
what's
part of the
going
art.
on? What?
I said it's part of the art. It totally makes
Yeah.
sense.
So what's going on is that the piece is called The Flaying of Marseille. And this is an old mythological story in which Marseille was a musician who was like renowned for being a well-known musician, and he was challenged to a musical contest by the devil, by a devil character. The devil is apparently jealous of his talent, or he's jealous of the way Marseille is able to communicate with the people. So some areas of the mythology have it so the devil wins based on a technicality. Some of it's just that the devil wins. It depends on the culture that tells the story. But regardless, the devil wins the story, and he says, so for me to win, and they wager that whoever wins the contest can do whatever they want to the loser. So he says, I want to skin you alive in front of everyone as a way of just asserting his dominance over whatever. So that's a depiction of the player Marseille after losing the contest being skinned alive. So that's him upside down you could see the devil is there, and they're pooling his blood into the bucket and blah, blah, blah. So why I use that is that it ties the name Abraded is based on like an abrasion to have your skin removed. But I have that, my interpretation of that, why I love that is, to me, it's an allegory for the process of development in which the skin as a protective layer organ of the body is representative of the ego, in which you need to, as a tool for growth, you need to expose yourself to the world, and then have the world give their feedback. And occasionally that can feel like, when you're having negative feedback, when you have difficult experiences, it can feel as if you're being skinned alive, because to be a performer, to be someone, an artist, is to put your intimate emotions out into the world and to have that protective layer removed, which is the skin. So to me, that's what Abraded means to me. So that's why I use the artwork, and it has that's why I used it.
I love how everything ties in, because now that you explain it, it goes together so perfectly. And so kudos to you on that, man.
Thank you very much. And I always loved, I love None So Vile. I love, there's tons of, to me, that's just as old school as it gets to have that. It's like a Renaissance era painting. That's like as old school metal as it gets. So I like it aesthetically. And the price was right, because it was, it's a Creative Commons. It's public domain.
Hell yeah.
Okay. That's so cool that, hearing that, on the surface, caveman metal, you think simple, but to have that kind of thought where the art, everything ties in together. I think sometimes metal, artists in general, don't get enough credit for there's a lot of meaning in stuff that maybe you just don't know, because like you said, being an artist, you kind of you have your art that you're trying to create, and you have your idea of it, but it could be something completely different to somebody else. It's just your perspective.
Yeah, and that's what I don't want to be one to micromanage or determine what that meaning is. I respect that when other people can do that, but I know from experience that takes it takes balls to it takes a level of vulnerability to be able to put your art out there without over explaining, because the other side, if you don't over explain it, you need to be open to being misunderstood. Because if you're letting other people, because if you let 100, 1,000, whatever people put their own interpretation on it, you're going to get 1,000 different. You're going to get as many interpretations as you have people that are seeing it.
That totally makes sense.
From my perspective, the easier thing would be to be like, hey, it's this, it's only this, write it off. I decided, but I agree with you in that I think the better thing to do would be to let people have their own interpretation of it.
Yeah, then it has meaning to you. That makes sense. How did you get into heavy music?
Wow.
It's a hard one.
Probably. So at the time I was, this would have been, so I'm 28 years old. I'm actually 27 for 2 more weeks. I'm 28 in like a week and a half. So I got into it like heavy stuff when I was 13. It would have been 2008. I got into it. I was big on 4chan. I was big on the internet. I was chronically online. So the first stuff I heard was Anal Cunt. Napalm Death. So at first, it was just like, because I liked stuff like Megadeth and Metallica. When I first heard like Anal Cunt, it had novelty to me. Like I enjoyed just showing it to people. Because I liked I liked to get the reaction out of people. I liked the trolling aspect. But then,
you're like, look at this right here.
Well, we put it, because me and my friends would get it. You know, me and my friends were trolls too. So we always had like a dark sense of humor, and we like to get a rise out of people. So we would just put that stuff on.
Yeah, that's great.
So I think I was initially attracted to the novelty of the extremity of stuff, but then the gradient of the actual musicality that followed like my guitar playing was a pretty standard. It was like I liked Metallica, then I liked Megadeth, then I liked Slayer, then I liked like mellow death stuff like At the Gates and Old in Flames, and then I liked Cannibal Corpse, and then once the other element of grindcore came in, where I was like, this is like, oh, this is great because I love the music. I love the death metal music. And then I love the political or the psychological or the dark humor aspect of grindcore. So that was when I got really into grindcore. Was about 14 years old.
Hell yeah. So you got in early. You had a chance to really get in early.
So I think that's also what attracted me to it, because it was super attainable as a goal, because I didn't have much experience playing in a band. I had jammed with friends and stuff, but I could never conceive of myself being in the next Metallica or whatever. But when I heard Extreme Noise Terror or Anal Cunt, I was like, okay, we could do this. Like,
this is something we can do.
It's a very attainable goal.
That's so cool.
Hell yeah.
So, are you around the same age when you decide to yourself, like, oh, like I don't want to just listen to this music. I want to create my own.
Yeah, because I was playing. So when you're in 5th grade, like where I'm at, which is you're 10 years old. They have you like pick up an instrument and you try an instrument. It might have even been 4th grade or something. And I did the violin for like a couple months, but I wouldn't practice it. But when you start the violin, you start playing it like a guitar. And I liked this, and I sucked at sports. I was fat. Like I didn't do like anything. I didn't have a hobby. My parents were divorced. All I did was play video games. So I think my parents were probably like a bit enthusiastic that I could at least like do something. So they were supportive to me in starting to play guitar around when I was 10. So yeah, I took lessons a bit, and then I started to be able to read tablature. So the whole time I'm like finding this music, I'm playing it on guitar too. So the biggest
Hell yeah.
stuff for sure was when I started playing, like when I was 13, I was playing Death and System of a Down.
Holy
See,
crap.
that's awesome right
But
there.
Death was like, oh, I felt really good because that was where my skill level was at. I was actually able to play. I was able to play some of that stuff. And I actually, even funnier is at the time, I wish I had this video. I went to this rock and roll summer camp. They have these ones now. It's called School of Rock.
Oh, I've heard of that.
So I went to one of those with the old Abraded guitarist, and we did Pull the Plug by Death, like with all these like high school kids. We were like 15 at the time, but I wish I had the video. It's so funny. But what they do is you go to this summer camp for a week, and then at the end of the week, like you play a song in front of all the kids' parents. And so we did Pull the Plug like at this bar and grill restaurant for all these kids' parents because we were part of it. So we do go back far. Like that was a huge influence on me too. Chuck Schuldiner.
Yeah, that is so sick. I'm like very, very casually. I just started picking up the guitar and like thinking about playing a Death song already kind of gives me anxiety.
It's not like I still can't do crazy. I can't do the like necrophagist, like crazy sweep stuff. Like once I started writing my own stuff, I really like I got better at writing my own stuff, but I stopped. Like I definitely like got content with like a certain level of skill, and especially because I wasn't into as wanky I wasn't into like the Joe Satriani, Steve Vai stuff.
Okay, that totally makes sense.
Makes sense.
The more shreddy stuff. Being that you are in Ohio, right now Ohio basically is the Florida, in my opinion, of death metal from the 90s. Like, what do you think a trip like is the reason for there being such a healthy scene in your area?
I think where we're at is within like my perception of the true fundamentals of death metal. I believe, and people can disagree with this, I believe death metal is rooted in like a very blue collar, almost rural demographic.
I feel that. I would agree.
Growing up, like I was just at Embalmer Dude's practice earlier, and then I got a lot of my chops playing in Hemdale when Hemdale reformed. If you guys are familiar with Hemdale at all,
yeah.
So again, those are two like death gore grind bands from the early '90s here in Cleveland. And then there's quite a other few. Apartment 213 is another legendary band from that era, more power violence band. But same with like, and Detroit, Midwest, all these, they're tough cities. They're tough cities that are poor, that are filled with blue collar people. And like another great example is like Cleveland originally Cleveland was a city that at one point, was housing 2 million people. The boom of the auto industry and everything. Detroit got even worse. Right now, the population of Cleveland is around 400,000. It's slightly above 400,000.
Wow.
So, like, my girlfriend's big into urbex. There's a big urbex community because there's so much abandoned stuff here.
Okay.
So
that makes sense.
No shit.
So Detroit is even worse. Detroit, like we were just in Detroit. Detroit is fucking wasteland.
Really?
Just as far as like, you could drive for an extended period down a street that has many abandoned, very large, like we're talking large abandoned steel factories, abandoned automobile plants. You could drive down the street here or there. At certain points where there might not be a street light for a quarter mile because there's so much of this abandonment, and there's so much of this disillusionment at the false promise of the Industrial Revolution is the best way I could put it. So I think death metal was born out of this nihilism and this abandonment that the blue collar people of these areas felt from this disillusionment that came from the Industrial Revolution.
Okay. That actually makes a lot of sense what you're saying.
So I think the Midwest, there's tons of great bands from Chicago, tons of great bands from, all over the Midwest and on the coasts and stuff too. But I think Ohio is just very much, Ohio doesn't have anything else.
That's totally understandable. We have a question here from Noah. What's up, Noah? He asked, what's your favorite place to play? And then what cities have given the best crowd response?
That's a great question, Noah. I appreciate you asking the question. My favorite place to play. My favorite places to go are California, Texas, and Florida.
Okay.
Love the warm weather. Love going wherever. What place has the best response? I was really surprised when the last time we went out, we played in a college town and the response was insane. And that was why that's notable to me is I had never experienced that before. When I was in college, and that's what's super cool about this death metal scene now is the inclusivity of younger people.
Yes.
Yeah. There's such a crazy variety of people at a show. From every age. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'll tell you for sure from experience, and again, I'm only 28, but because I've been doing this for a bit, 10 years ago, it was not like this at all.
Really?
You're right.
Yeah, 10 years ago, about 11, 12 years ago, I was the original singer of Inoculation. They were so I was going out with them more so. My bands were always like grindcore bands. So I'll speak on that experience, just singing for them, just because it's more relevant to death metal.
Yeah.
There were no death metal bands. There were the OGs. There were the old guys.
Cannibal Corpse, Suffo, all those bands.
Yeah, well, and again, from our area, like Embalmer's always played. Embalmer's the shit. Like Hemdale reformed shortly after that. There was Solipsis, which is the guys from Nunslaughter. Nunslaughter is the other band from this area who's been around for forever. So I'm not saying that there weren't like bands, but there were no because when I would go out with them, we played deathcore shows. It was deathcore shows because there were no other 18-year-old, 19-year-old kids playing old school death metal.
You're absolutely right, and that's you bring up a good point because I'm 27, or about to turn 27 this month. We're the same age.
Okay.
So like that was what got me into heavy music was deathcore. I see Suicide Silence, You Only Live Once, that music video, and I'm like, what? Like, I'm going from listening to Slipknot, Mastodon, Megadeth, Metallica, the more popular metal, and I hear that and I'm just like, dude, what is this? The breakdowns. So that totally makes sense. And even you going like talking about 10 years ago, like that's around when I started going to shows. And I remember going to my first couple of shows. I went with my dad, my dad's not a death metal fan by any stretch. He's like, his favorite bands are probably like AC/DC, Metallica, and like the heaviest ends of the spectrum, Pantera. He's taking me to these shows and he's like, what the heck? Like, you're going to all these shows where there's nothing but men my age. Like, what are you listening to? Yeah. We took him to Undeath this weekend because he had never been to like a, even though it was a deathcore show, but like that type of show. We took him there and he's like, oh, like there's finally people your guys' age here. Like I was expecting to see like everyone my age. And so that makes a lot of sense. You saying that, I'm like, you know what, that happened just recently to us.
Yeah, totally. I had a similar experience with my dad too. I never took him here, but like just when I got into stuff, he wasn't pushing that, but it was the same thing. Just everyone's so old, you know what I mean? And that's it. I would always joke around because when we reformed with Hamdale, that dude I was 19 when I was playing with him, and the dude was like 42 or something. So I'd tell everyone it was my dad when we were playing. So there's still some people There was a guy who messaged me last week from Europe. We played some gig in Europe and we were fucked up, you know what I mean, getting drunk. We don't even remember what we said. There's a guy from Europe like, are you part of the legendary father-son grindcore group Hemdale? And I was just like, oh yeah, that's me for sure. I'm the son.
I love that. We got a comment too by Zeke. It says, I remember it was just gruesome and skeletal remains in like 2014, 2015, and they used to get made fun of for living in the past. Now they're hella killer bands. Totally agree.
Dude, and I think it's awesome he said that, because that shows that like I just saw Skeletal Remains when they were fucking touring with fucking Defeated Sanity. He was so sick. You know, the musicianship like on that gig, it was Vitriol, Skeletal Remains, just
that's a bill.
Just so much talent on a bill. But this goes to show they've been grinding for this whole fucking time.
Yeah, they've been going. And even, you know, I saw them with Vomit Forth, which is like they're two different bands too. You know what I mean? I think that's dope that they're like, I've seen they're a flexible band. Skeletal Remains, you know, will go out with, you know, any heavier band. It seems like you got to do that.
Well, they deserve it for that consistency that they have. But and it does, because it looks out. I hope, you know what I mean. I suffer to it too. I hope young kids see. They don't, like, if people are getting into it now, there's just because there's a handful of bands that like Bog or Stab Wounds, you know what I mean, that blew up out like right out the gate. And you talked to Buell. I didn't watch any of what you talked to Devin, but like it looks like they blew up right out the gate because those bands did. But a lot of people might not look into it or realize, oh, but they had 5 bands before that.
Yeah.
And they were grinding hard as fuck before that. So they did, you know what I mean? They deserve what they've earned through starting a new project. You know what I mean? And it's not all, not everything's instant hype.
No, and you know, even with Bog, they have multiple bands within the band. You know what I mean? Every guy has a couple different projects that they're working in, and they're not all the size of the Bog. So, you know,
totally. Like, and I think nothing but props to them for that, because it shows where their heart's at. It would be easy to say they're only in it for the money if everything else they were doing was, you know, Taylor Swift cover.
Yeah.
Whatever. But yeah, one of my old grindcore bands played with one of Cody's old bands fucking in like, it was like 2014 or, you know what I mean? That dude has been playing for forever. No, just no one knows those bands. You know what I mean? No one. Same with like when Buell talked about, I had done sound for Subtype Zero before. Mm-hmm. And again, it looks like Stab Wounds blew up off the gate. They did. But on the other hand, it's like no one says they paid their dues and they fucking got their chops playing in other bands.
Yeah. Noah again says, so when are y'all coming back to St. Louis?
Oh, Noah, you're the dude from St. Louis. Oh, Noah is the one, is fucking Bloodspawn, dude.
Okay.
Shout out Bloodspawn. Bloodspawn's sick. When you'll book us, Noah, love to play with you again. We're playing Chicago. Hold on.
Please plug it.
I have to find the day. Hold on. We're playing Chicago July 8th. If you want to set something up that weekend, hit me up. Maybe July 9th or something. Hit me up.
Let's go. That's sick. You had mentioned too, like touring earlier, like Florida, Texas, and California. Which, like, have you done pretty extensive touring in your past, or have you kind of, you know, weekend here, weekend there?
I've done a bit with previous things, not with Abraded. Abraded's only been out a handful of times.
Okay, good to know.
But definitely, yeah, my old band MDFL, we did quite a bit. We did this like 5-week run, and this is back 2015. We did a 5-week run, and then a couple 3-week runs, and then we had this other thing where we did a 10-week run, and that was like crazy. And then we did with Hemdale, I did 5 weeks in Europe with Hemdale. So I've done a bit, but after doing, I got into it so young, you know what I mean? I missed high school graduation to go play shows out of town with MDFL.
That's so sick.
And fun fact about that for anyone for the one person who might watch this to care, that was 2013 MDFL played with Controlled by Fear, and that was the singer of Undeath's first band. He had a grindcore band. His band. But anyway, so I was 18, you know what I mean? By the time I was 20, I was doing so much and I was drinking the whole time. So I really had this like journey that culminated with it was Hemdale playing Maryland Death Fest in 2016, and I went and I did this like Van Halen jump. I did the splits in the air and landed and tore my ACL on stage 1 minute into the set. And then fell on it 4 more times because I was on wayside. I didn't realize how bad it was. Totally just fucking mangled my leg. So after that, I really had to chill out. I had to get I stopped drinking, and then I got into physical therapy. I had to take courses on physical therapy, and I got into yoga. I had to go on this whole healing journey to even like be functional because I was going way too hard partying before. So now I'm finally like coming back to like being able to do it in a reasonable way.
Okay. And then Noah said done. So it looks like you're going to be playing St. Louis too.
I'm going to DM you, Noah. I'm going to DM you, Noah. Thank you for hitting me up.
As far as like your experiences on the road, like what would be your favorite part? And then what is the worst part in your opinion?
Dude, with the best part, like if I was to sell it to anyone, is that you get to, it's the best travel experience because you get to experience other cultures like from the inside. So we always go to, we are big on where do the locals go? We just say, okay, what do the tourists do? We want to do the tourist stuff, but then what do the locals do? We want to do the local stuff. So we're always love going to any hole in the wall, greasy spoon restaurant, anything. Again, just those underground gems where it's just like, because we're already in a network of people that are coordinating this stuff, we get this inside scoop that might be difficult to do if you didn't know anyone and you were traveling somewhere away from that.
Okay.
So the negative side of the touring is just the responsibility that comes with you are in a survival situation. This is you. Do not know, like if you're legit, you know what I mean? If you're legit and you have a rider, I'm sure the bigger bands, whatever, they know when you're a lower band, you don't know if you're getting fed. You don't know where you're getting food. You don't know if you're selling any merch. You don't know if anyone's going to like it. You have a lot of responsibility to really provide for your own survival needs when you're doing it. Plus, on top of that, you're spending a lot of time in the car. You might not be, you know what I mean? You got to have your own, you got to have your self-care on fleeky. If you want to seriously tour with longevity, please, young bands, if there's any younger people listening to me, please listen to just this one part. If you want to have longevity with touring, your self-care needs to be on fleek.
You got to make sure you take care of yourself first. You got to make sure you're good. You feel good.
Mentally and physically.
Go out and do nothing but drink and smoke and eat Jack in the Box every meal. And dude, we were not health conscious, and I'm thankful for that experience because it fucking myself up doing that made me be like, okay, now I see why it's important to take care of your health.
Yeah, I that makes so much sense too. And but like on the other end of the spectrum, being a young person, like it's drinking all day, smoking and eating Jack in the Box every day sounds freaking awesome.
It catches up to you, I'm
sure
assuming.
After day 4 or 5, you're like, oh my goodness, like what's going on?
Well, I really do think people should have the freedom to explore their desires. And I think that's what this music is about to me. That's what the caveman shit is about, is that you have, let's say there's a primitive impulse towards aggression, or there's a primitive impulse towards partying or whatever. Go explore it so you know.
Yeah, don't suppress it.
Go, like, because it's like, if you would have told me, or if I would have heard me talking when I was younger, I would have been like, I don't care what this nerd has to say. Like, I want to go drink and smoke and eat Jack in the Box. Well, that's why I said go do it for 60 days in a row. Do it for 365 days in a row.
Oh man.
Then you'll be like, oh my God, maybe I should like go on a walk.
I gotta take a couple days off and do some healthy shit.
Everyone's got their own breaking point. Like, just go to your breaking point. Like, I'm not trying to preach, but that was my experience.
No, that totally. And then as far as like, obviously you're a creator. Are you still like a big fan of metal where like you still keep up on recent releases and things of that nature?
I try to do my best. There's people that definitely like inspire me in all fields. So I keep up with, or I do the best I can to keep up with whatever they're doing. I definitely like always have my eyes on the graphic element of metal. I think the graphic is timeless. And I think it totally transcends just music. And again, you see this when you see people bitching that Kim Kardashian wore a Morbid Angel shirt or whatever. But or there was it was Vetements or some streetwear brand did the Mortician logo, whatever. Like, but it just shows the timelessness and how relevant the graphic elements are. That, you know what I mean? That a high fashion brand that is completely removed from the actual culture of death metal would be ripping off its artistic elements 30 years after they did it.
You know what? And I love that you bring that up because it sounds weird, but like one of my favorite things about metal is like wearing a shirt of a band that I really enjoy. I've talked about this on the show where like it is almost like a game where I'm like, I hope somebody asks me what my shirt says, what that is, so that we can be like, oh, it's this, you should check it out. It's almost like an invitation, so to speak.
No, see, and that's why it's so relevant because it totally creates its own niche in which it's like, I've seen people go on about it a bit more eloquently than I can, where you see like a graphic designer post something, let's say, I want to say it was Gruesome who did our art. Maybe he posted something for something he did for Sanguisugabog or something. And there was some normie that was like, oh, you can't even fucking read this. What's the point? And it's like, that almost is the point, and that it's a polarizing environment in which it creates an in-group and an out-group, because there's the people who can read this. I really think, because we've discussed it a bit, I think that was part of Sanguisugabog's blow up, is that it created this because their band name, not only is the logo illegible, the name's unpronounceable. So now, if you can, because it gives you that element of, you feel like you're part of something almost esoteric. You're part of an in-group who knows what it is, and you get to celebrate it amongst the people who do know what it is, while you also are insulated from the people who don't.
Yeah, well put.
Thank you.
As far as like, more recent releases, do you have any recent releases that you are enjoying lately?
I'd have to check out. The Bog release is good. You're talking metal ones?
Yeah, or just anything in general.
Dude, the Bonginator stuff is. We loved playing with Bonginator. We listened to their EP like 100 times. We were just we loved how they framed the storytelling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was an element that's definitely missing from some other people, where they aren't, maybe there isn't a coherent story or something. But there's a lot of good labels. I trust, the stuff that comes out on Redefining Darkness. He's a good curator. Maggot Stomp's a good curator for his niche.
I like $20 spin.
Yeah. $20 spins. Got good stuff. What was the last one? What was that? Cerebral Rot.
Okay. What was that on? That was killer album.
Yeah, that was on $20 spin, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. That's what's so cool. And then even down to the smaller, even down to what I definitely pay attention to what Frozen Screams does.
Okay.
I pay attention to what Maggot Stomp does. I pay attention to what Redefining Darkness does. Because I run my own label too, so that it's not just
Okay.
music that I'm looking at them for. Like Frozen Screams just did these fucking super cool VHSs for Weeping from New Jersey, if you're familiar with them at all.
I haven't checked them out, but I'm gonna write that down. I'll check them out.
They do they got like an HM2 pedal on. They're pretty good. They're like
all right. That's right up my alley. I love.
But regardless, he
sound.
did these super cool, like super deluxe VHSs, and even Undeath did a VHS.
I remember that.
Well, it's them in their basement, and it's like, I love that shit. So I did a VHS for one of the bands I filmed for my label. Nice. You know what I mean? There's a lot of aspects where I'm like, and that's what I'll always love about metal. I do a lot of like music and different genres and stuff, but I love the coherent aesthetic. I love the way they tie together nostalgia in the packaging. I'm always going to be paying attention to how are they marketing this? How are they tying it together to properly tell the story?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, that's well put on your part, and it makes sense. Like, why else? Like, are people buying vinyl and tapes? Like, in no other genre do people do that. And, now VHS is like you're saying, it's like, going back in a circle, kind of, it all comes back around. I love that.
Totally. And yeah, and again, like when you talk to people on the outside, you really get to feel the camaraderie amongst the metal community, because you can see how, because again, when I tell someone, I like so-and-so did a VHS. If you tell someone who's not on the inside about that, they're like, what the fuck are you talking about a VHS?
VHS, yeah.
I don't even have a CD player. What the fuck is a VHS? You know what I mean? There's probably kids now that don't even know what a CD is. If you're talking kids in high school, they probably never had CDs.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's all, iPod. And then obviously now streaming services.
Sure. I think that nostalgia will always be an element.
So going on to your label, is your label the Aggressively Uninterested? Is that your label? Okay, that's super cool, because I was wondering that, because I know you were on Maggot Stomp, and then I was wondering if it was a self-release or just a different label. But I think that's really cool, going from a label like Maggot Stomp, where a lot of people like, oh, Maggot Stomp is putting it out, I'm going to check it out, to do it yourself. I think that's awesome. I like that move.
I appreciate that. Yeah, he did. And I'm so thankful for the exposure we got from working with him. And we were just in the right place at the right time. That Descendants of the Swamp EP was the second release Maggot Stomp ever put out. And because I was doing the label, I had been in correspondence with Scott, who runs it, from before he was a label, before he did pins, and I had wholesale bought the pins. So I was just thankful I was on his radar. So again, he did his thing. He put our record out, and then shortly after, he put out stuff that had gotten a lot more exposure than we did, and it just helped us, and it helped everyone that was involved in the long run. So I can't do anything but be thankful for that. We were just in the right place at the right time, and then there were just other bands who were more ready to capitalize on it than we were. Because we did not. I'm really blown away by the listeners we have, specifically on that EP, the Descendants of the Swamp EP. We get a lot of streams on it, and I'm really blown away by that, because it still gets tons of streams every day.
And that's cool too, because when I went on the Spotify, because I had first listened to the album on the new album on Bandcamp. So then when I went on Spotify, I noticed usually, like the newest stuff is going to be your top played music. Yeah. And 4 out of the 5 songs were all from the EP. And I was like, what am I doing? Why haven't I listened to this? So, and it makes sense, it's very good.
Thank you very much. There was a lot more, and it's crazy just because I've done a ton of stuff. And when I did that, I didn't think anything of it. I was given I put those tapes out myself, and I was giving them away before Maggot Stomp put it out. And then even when Maggot Stomp put it out, Maggot Stomp hadn't established a reputation yet. So again, it just blows me away because I didn't expect it at all. But I think people can tell that there was a lot more, there was a lot of love and care put into the EP that resonates with people, even in spite of its imperfections. And I hope that some people even enjoy it for its imperfections.
I think
Yeah, it was
demo,
great.
the demo and EP stage of a band is really fun because it's a lot of time like experimenting, and like you don't really, from what I've heard from a lot of our guests, you don't really know what you're doing at the time, and that's almost the beauty in it.
And it's different when we have done, because those dudes had been around the block and I had been around the block with other things, but we didn't know what so we knew what we were doing as far as like curating some music, but we didn't know what we were doing as far as putting it out there and capitalizing on it. And so I guess all I'm trying to speak on is that there will always be something you gotta have, just keep the mentality of childlike wonder and always be ready to learn, because you never fucking have it all figured out, and there's always something you could be figuring out. So again, that blows me away to see the response we still get for the first EP. Is crazy to me.
Yeah,
That's
it resonated, and that's killer, man. I think like one of the things that I loved about that EP was the snare tone in particular. I'm like, ooh, that's nice. That scratches my caveman itch.
Thank you. It comes from just mixing a lot of hip hop. That's what I like. To me, I like it sounding like a clap, and and gore, comes from gore grind too. So, but where it sits in the mix, that's my preference. I see other people doing it. I love it. It's a trend I love to see. I think Boggs got it fucking dialed in.
Oh man, me and Al were just talking about Cody, just how ridiculous of a drummer he is.
Dude, and it's so crazy because that's not even his main instrument too.
Yeah, that is what's crazy.
Because he goes, the dude's a savant. Dude, it's just, that's what I mean. Like, people, sometimes you see people talk about there's a lot of purists, there's a lot of purists, there's a lot of elitists in metal. You know what I mean? I talk to a lot of old guys, young guys, that maybe aren't people that people that are maybe skeptical of the new exposure that the genre is getting. And it's just like, dude, you could never fucking knock people. There is no shortage of amazing musical talent in all the bands I see. They are phenomenally talented. I'm so privileged to see 200 Stab Wounds, Sanguisuga Bog, Inoculation. Who the hell else is from here?
Stab Hag, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Stab Hag, sick.
Mutilation
That's
Barbecue.
even getting into whatever, but yeah, Embalmer dudes, just fucking no shortage of musical talent. Dudes.
Yeah,
dudes
it's just crazy out there.
I'm
Nuts
jealous.
out there.
At one point, I was looking up. I was on Zillow, and I'm like, should I go to Ohio just so I could?
Dude, that is so funny. That it's like, if the only thing desirable about it is cheap real estate and
cheap real estate, great music.
Well,
yeah.
So we live in California, and
where are you at in California?
We are in Turlock, California.
Where's
We're
that?
It is
about yeah. We're like an hour and a half north of Fresno, and about an hour and a half south of Sacramento. We're in like this, I call it the armpit of the Central Valley.
Oh, okay. I know where you're at.
Yeah, and like it's really expensive. So like I'm like when I was looking, I'm like, oh man, it's cheap to live out there. There's probably all kinds of great death metal shows. My girl was the one who was like, we are not moving to Ohio.
I did have a friend come live with me that was from South Central. Come live with me in Ohio, but it was not death metal related.
Okay. Well, we really appreciate you hopping on. We'll wind it down. We'll have you on your way. The last thing that we always ask is, how does metal get you high?
I think what I said earlier, I think it's the camaraderie about having a group of people that can understand you, and you have a specified code of communication. You have a code of conduct in which the way you interact with people is it's confined to your in group. And I think people should feel safe to express themselves in it. And I think people should feel safe to explore themselves within the group. And I think the group should be unified around freedom of expression and support for artistic endeavors and support for emotional expression with no pretentiousness. Metal should be a space where people can express their desires, their pleasures, anything dark. Metal is a space where I think dark can come to light, and people should approach it with an inquisitive mindset and a non-judgmental mindset.
Man, I love that answer.
I
love it so
I
much.
can't tell you how much I've enjoyed like your perspective and points of view on the heavy scene.
Thank you very much.
I like, because like you're saying, it really is inclusive, and life is hard, and it's just like a good, like, like, I'm just gonna relax and listen to somebody talking about their frustrations, and it's like it's good to know that there are other people who think about fucked up shit, but like want to put it in a positive way. I think that's the beauty in it.
Absolutely. It's a cathartic experience, and everyone deserves that cathartic experience.
I couldn't agree more. And we put all of like your links as far as like socials in the description, because we want people to, if they haven't checked out Abraded, check it out. And then obviously once you start hitting some shows, freaking show out, buy some merch from you and support.
Absolutely.
Yeah, hey, and whenever you're out in California, man, we're there.
For sure. I'd love to set something up later in the year. We're about to go to South America for a month and 3 weeks. And then I'm looking to set something up later in the year. So if you guys have any recommendations for people to talk to that might be interested in what we do.
You got to go to Brazil. You got to go to Brazil.
We don't have time for Brazil this time. We're just doing Colombia. Bring iCarly to Brazil.
That's our new thing that we've been saying lately. The new litmus test, if you've made it as a band, is if you get the "Come to Brazil" comment. Once you get the "Come to Brazil" comment, you've made it.
The new litmus test, if you're a death metal band, you are not doing shit if you're not getting blown up by Indonesian artists in your DMs that say, "Hello, friend, I like to sell you art."
Okay, that's good to know too, as an artist. Well, do you have anything you want to plug in particular before we let you go?
I'll plug, but I got a question for you guys. I wanted to ask you guys, because you guys have talked to quite a few people, and I think you have talked to the people who are pioneering this go right now. What do you make of? Is there something either archetypal or what? How would you describe the typical person you talk to in your podcast about death metal?
I would say
everybody's been so down to earth. Everybody's been so gracious with their time and down to earth. When we started, it really took me back at how just embracive and nice everybody was in the metal community. I mean, our first guest was Steve Bull, and it was just a long shot for us, and he was more than happy to. He spent almost an hour with us. That's one thing that's I've really noticed is just everybody is just really, really gracious with their time, really cool and down to earth.
That's what I would say too, is like, like my perception when I first got into heavy music, like I said, I'm listening to Suicide Silence and Whitechapel. My perception at that time is like, oh man, like I wouldn't want to talk to Phil Bozeman or Mitch Lucker. Like that guy would punch me in the face. That guy's horrifying. But then the reality is, we start talking to people and some of our favorite bands. There hasn't been a single show where afterwards where we're talking amongst ourselves where we're like, man, person was
awesome.
really, really cool. Like I really want to be able to meet that person. And we've just recently, you know, because of the show, we at the Undeath show, we talked to Alex for a little bit, and he was super cool. We've talked to Steve in person. We've talked to so many bands in person because of this show, where it's like, holy crap, like these are normal human beings like us who love this weird music. But you know, the difference between us and them is we're consuming it and they're creating it. And because of that, like, you know, guys and bands have been like, why don't you guys start a band? And it's had me pick up guitar. It has Ramon picking up a bass, and like
slowly
you
but
know,
surely.
we you know, we're practical, where like we know we're never gonna like go on tour or anything like that, but it's like, why not, you know, try to put our express what we want to express to the world, and you know, who cares if it's good or not.
Absolutely. And I think that's the purpose of it. And I really think more people should do what you guys are doing too. I've thought about it. That's what part of the reason I was curious. I'd love to do my own podcast once I have enough.
And please do it, man. We're trying to inspire everybody. It's
I
such
think
a great
that's the
way
thing
to get
too,
your ideas out.
Where we did this, because it's like, you know, Slipknot, Korn, Avenged Sevenfold, they have their voice, but like, who's talking, you know, to Abraded? Who's talking to Mutilation Barbecue? You know, and all, you know, all these death metal bands, they have fans who would probably love to know, you know, like people's perspective on the world and their art.
Yeah, and we need a mediator, people like you guys, who can go back and forth between, like you're doing now, who can go be a normal person, to bring the stories of those people to the other people that could receive it. I know from experience, being an artist is sometimes, occasionally, sometimes often pretty indulgent. And it's not always the easiest to deliver a message as such a niche as a death metal guy, as something like that, to a mass of people. You get used to speaking within your own group, your in-group of metal people, that group I spoke of earlier. So you guys do a great service to help bring that message and help bring these people's stories to a larger audience. And you help mediate that by being able to navigate between the world of normality and the world of darkness. And,
well, we appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And that's, like I said, I the other thing is, like, I want to learn about new music. Like, if you're a band that I like, I want to hear, you know, who inspires you, because like there are bands out there that I'm ashamed where like I haven't listened to, and it's like more of like, shoot, this band's got a long discography and I don't really know where to start. And you know, so like one band I can tell you off the top of my head that I've never listened to, and people would be like, you're a death metal fan, you've never listened to them? Never listened to Nile once in my life.
Okay. They got their own niche style. There's so many different styles at this point, and there's so many people coming at it from so many different angles. I don't expect I don't think there should be a rule book or anything where I hear people, like, if you were to say, I don't like Cannibal Corpse or I don't like Slayer, it's like, because you could like something else, man. Like, it's like, there is, you are coming into an in-group where there are some people that would say, oh my God, that's fucking sacrilegious. You've never heard Autopsy or whatever. And it's just, again, you don't have to be familiar with, dude, because none of you're talking about Undeath and to understand, like Nile doesn't have a lot in common with them.
Well, you know, I'm just saying, like, I'm not afraid to say that I don't know something or anything like that, because like,
good for you.
I listen to what I like. Like, let's say, like, for instance, I've said this, I have a Slipknot sleeve of the original 9 members. I love Slipknot, but like, I could objectively say that the music they're creating now isn't for me, and that's fine. It's not inherently bad, it's just not what I like. But at least I have those first 2 albums that I do really like, and I could always go back.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's all that matters when you're because when you're navigating art. I mean, you talk to people like me where I'm like, oh, I got 10 bands and a record label and blah 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 blah. Everyone's a celebrity now, everyone's a star now. All that matters when you're navigating something like that is that it has personal resonance to you and it inspires you to do whatever you want to do. So fuck any rules that people put on it. Fuck any rule book that people say this is how you need to engage with, blah, blah, blah. You can engage with art how you want, and how you should engage with it is in the way that inspires you.
Fucking A. I couldn't have said any better myself.
Well put, man. Well, thank you, Patrick. We really appreciate your time. And like I said,
Thank you.
love hearing what your thoughts on the genres. They've kind of made me think, and I like that.
Thank you so much. That's the best compliment I could get. I'm so happy you guys asked me to come on.
Cool, man.
Hell yeah.
Well, thank you guys. Enjoy.
Absolutely.
All right, take it easy.
Sell some cars.